Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a sprint. You live by the sprint, you die by the sprint, and today, we're living. Did not intend to be doing this at 4:40, but here we are. I live and die by the sprint, like I said. Alright. We are on the clock. You can see the queue. We're going to discuss that in a second. I honestly really like CD, but we got to go Jettas. Don't overthink it. Jettas is the man. And the rest of this lineup can perfectly go the way that I perceive that hopefully it can, while still taking Jettas. Alright. My main thought process yesterday, as I was sitting in my humble abode, pondering, what am I undervalued on? What teams am I not properly considering? And the two big ones, not necessarily improperly considering, but ones that I just haven't stacked up, be it team or otherwise. Oh my god. Music! The ones that I haven't been considering right in terms of team stacks, or not, again, misspeaking there. The ones that I just don't have enough exposure to, games or teams that I think present a decent bit of upside, are fairly easy to get into, but are ones that I simply just haven't been targeting because I'm looking for matchups I perceive to be better. Two big teams, New England and Tennessee, which is why you see this monstrosity of a queue going right now. If the draft speaks to us this way, if it makes financial sense to maybe pursue one or both of these two teams in this draft, we're going to do it. But until I get there, this draft is fairly open. And after taking Jettas, I can certainly be swayed to walk that shit back. All right. Pick 21. What are we thinking? Honestly, just give me Reishi. He's someone I'm under on bags. Tiff. I have like 0 Jonathan Taylor. And I don't particularly like their schedule. Hand up, I like Josh Jacobs. That's me. I'm the guy. I like Josh Jacobs. And considering the other stacks that I want to do later are more tailored towards hitting the quarterback wide receiver combo, I'm fine with taking a running back here. I could have taken JT. It's just I don't see much of a possibility that JT is going to get crazy run against San Francisco and Jacksonville. I just don't really see that. It's not like Green Bay is going up into a cakewalk against any of their teams, but I still personally like it better. 28's going to throw me for a loop here, though, for sure. We could reach on Brees, estimating that we're going to go New England. Where's Diggs' ADP? 80? How do we line up? Could take Diggs at 76, and then May at 113. I wouldn't want to take him at 100. So we're probably going to avoid that. Cam Ward, 57 is kind of a similar thing. So I'm just going to humbly admit this is not the right draft for it, mainly because of where the quarterbacks line up. I'll keep it in the back of my mind. There is a fair chance that we find some value, but I'm not going to put the pressure on myself to do that. Let's go Chase Brown. Chase Brown's another player I don't have much of, and we can do kind of a no Lamar, kind of Baltimore minis here. This is a very different team for me. I admittedly don't draft much Chase Brown. Could be missing the boat there by all means, but I don't know. It's just hard for me to put my faith in him, I guess. $45 and $52. I mean, it's an easy JMO there. 52. Probably Zay. And don't overthink it too much. This is more akin to like most of the drafts you'll probably be doing yourself. Some of my previous streams have been like very outer cases of me like hyper focusing on a given like 3-game stack, which admittedly in the sprint, which I'm doing right now, is kind of what I want to be doing. But I think in most people's drafts, the ones that I was doing take a little bit of luck. Just not having a Jamoke in your draft that screws it up at any given point, you know? And getting the given pick that actually opens up that path to you, stuff like that. So I think this is more akin to what you'll more likely have to be doing, which is imperfect, but does not take away any of your ceiling. And to be fair, while I haven't drafted much Chase Brown, he certainly has the ceiling for it. Like, he's going to have, I would assume, like, full reign over the backfield. The assumption there is what kind of scares me a little bit, though, just because, as we all know, later round running backs, just one day, you get a new coach, you get something, anything changes, and you could be out the door like you were never anything. Give me J-Mo. If not, I'm a Pickens slut. All right. Fairly easy JMO there. Again, because this is a sprint and I now have 2 games for Baltimore and a 3-game sample size, I would prefer to get Zay Flowers over George Pickens in this scenario. Because I don't have any Washington or Chargers to play into that. And what's Baltimore's other game? New England, which, you know, we still could end up dipping our toes into. Oh, I thought that was Zay. My heart was about to break. Don't leave me yet. I could just force Calvin Ridley if I had to, but I don't want to do that with this team. Do it for the content. I mean, I guess Trevion's there. Yay! Alright, sweet. Feeling good about how this is shaking out. Pretty fucking good. I like it. Alright, next picks. What are we looking at, gents? 69 and 76. I mean, this opens up the McCarthy double. Laporta's a fine pick. Monty would be a fucking fantastic RB3, and I'd be able to just kind of punt the rest of the draft and maybe angle myself towards those later New England wide receivers. That's not a bad consideration. Diggs is there. We would have to take him at 76 if we do want to do the New England thing. Important thing to keep in mind. But we'll have to see where this all ends up. I'm going to be cooking myself some cutlets tonight. Pretty excited for it. I'm gonna be a little fat boy tonight. The Monday Fat Boy Blues. Fry them suckers up. And be the man that I need to be. A fried chicken eating son of a gun. Technically a chicken cutlet, not really fried chicken. Alright. Let's see how the rest of this draft is going right now. We got a pretty standard Lamar start over there going McBride. Into Hurts Pickens is interesting. I mean, you already know my viewpoint on like both a Hurts line and what line I especially love George Pickens in, which is that Allen. Who's the first pick in the Allen line? Saquon. All right. Just to double check myself, McCarthy is 125. How does that line up with our interests? Lines up pretty perfect. So I definitely think we'll consider Addison. And then the real question is, how do we approach tight end? Do we take Laporta and try and go with an interdivision double? One of my buddies did that on DK, sent the draft the other day. Looked like a very beautiful lineup. It does work out pretty well. How does... Where's my boy at? Hawk is 85. Yeah, I think we say fuck Diggs. If Laporta isn't there though, I'm well, technically if either one of these players aren't there, I will about face. All right. Well, there we go. That's a pretty safe answer for us. And we are going to angle towards a McCarthy double. Goff less so, but we can maybe take May if he falls, which would be pretty sweet. $76, targeting Diggs, hoping that May falls to 117, which isn't an astronomical hope, but a hope nonetheless. Part of the luck I was mentioning earlier. This song might get this part of the VOD muted, but we're going to find out because I love it too much. All right, Diggsy, make it there. We could potentially go golden. There's nothing wrong with that, especially now that we have Flowers, and that would open up some of the other tight ends later. But I do think this New England option makes a little bit of sense. Let me make sure I'm not crazy. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Because I can work in some later Buffalo receivers to try and work into New England's 3 matchups. And you expect in 15 and 16, like, New England's going to have to throw the ball against Buffalo and Baltimore. At least if you're taking May, you hope so. And then against the Jets, I do expect that one might be a fairly low total. But that's when we're going to need that Baltimore-Green Bay game to step up, that Minnesota-Detroit game to step up. We already are aiming towards the Minnesota double to try and push us over the edge for McCarthy's first 2 weeks, hopefully. Not to say that, I mean, May's first 2 weeks, hopefully. Not to say that McCarthy can't provide a little value in those 2 weeks. Because I'm going to be angling towards the quarterbacks, I don't want to, I don't know. It wouldn't be a bad thing. Apologies. Wouldn't be a bad thing. This will be super interesting. Where is Judkins going to fall? This will be super interesting. I'll say this. I want to see what the draft room does. But if he's there at 100, I'm taking him. I just want to see, like, because honestly, I would take him at 93. I want to see how scared people are. The most interesting thing about Judkins, I said this to my friends earlier, is how the NFL handles it, because he's technically not even contracted with the league yet. He hasn't signed with the Browns. So it's a rare situation where he's been drafted, hasn't signed it, and has this domestic violence legal issue. All right. I zoned out, wasn't paying attention. Oh, I could do a naked fields here. Does that line up at all? Not really. A little bit of a panic pick there. But I don't care. I didn't want to take Warren because of the bye week, even though everyone tells me the bye week shouldn't be too big of a consideration for you. My bad. We'll go Scattaboo. Plays Minnesota in 16, maybe tumbles his way in. I wouldn't bank on it though. And I also am slightly incentivized to let Fields fall here to hopefully incentivize a fall later by May. We could have taken Najee, but that would have been a reach. I think Pittman is a fine, just additional half PPR wide receiver. Although I do then likely remove myself from contention with some of those Buffalo receivers I was speaking of earlier. Hand up, I panicked. I'm human. Lost track of time. Was talking Judkins. Scattaboozy. Hopefully you can be something good. I honestly prefer Tracy, but I have low shares of Scattaboo, so I'm fine with evening out my shares. Quick update on the 8-hour draft. I can't remember if we talked about Rome and Harvey. I think we did yesterday. This morning, ended up going Pollard and Ayuk. Pollard simply because I, again, don't have many shares of him. Ayuk because we are angling towards this San Francisco-Chicago game. Pollard also allows me to target the quarterbacks and some kind of ancillary things later and feel a lot safer at my running back spot. All right, we're going to find out if that section of the video gets muted or not, because I was listening to Moto Soul. All right, Drake May, will you make it to me? I'm analyzing. Oh, I mean, we would love Likely later. Walking into like a Likely, Hunter, Kincaid. I mean, give me that 3 ball to play into, and I'm a happy man. Admittedly, 3 tight ends I don't think have top 5 upside, but I hope I can make up for it through their culmination of week-to-week upside. I unfortunately don't think... Yeah, I was going to say, even if Andrews was there, I can't do it. I need my back-to-back quarterbacks here. All right, sweet. We got our first one. Let's get our second one. We'd also be happy if Ray Davis fell. Trying to think who else we might tap into later. ATL doesn't play into this, no. Which, hand up, I'm sure you've seen me doing it a ton by now, looking at the screen. Keep up the fantasy playoffs. I'm not a computer, you're not a computer. Use it to your advantage. Alright. I'm hyped though. We got our two quarterbacks. Young bucks with a little bit of scoot to them. Likely is probably the, I guess, Hunter Henry as well. Kincaid's the least important of them. By far. In fact, I probably don't even need to cue him. It's one game that New England plays. But Likely and Henry, I feel, are fairly important since we have Baltimore on a fairly lined up schedule. And Henry because of the stack. And we work into his games. Not too great right now, to be fair. But there goes Likely. Tiff. All right. Well, without the game stacks, we're back to square one, admittedly. None of these players abundantly line up, and we have one game out of Ferguson, one game out of Kincaid. Pitts has the upside. We get a 17 out of Strange, but in the sprint, this shouldn't be like the one game aspect that I consider heavily in like BBM or stuff like that means so much less in the sprint because it's only one game of 3. Like, you want those multiple game stacks. That's going to be what really pushes your ceiling higher. And admittedly, we don't see too much of that out of any of these players that are left. So, my consensus here would be, apart from Henry, literally just take the ceiling guys, which to me would be Pitts, who I'm not going to angle towards right now. What's the next pick, though? 65. So I could take Pitts, I guess. I mean, he gets a ton of hate, but if there's anyone left with a fair bit of ceiling, it's him. So let's do it. I'm being caught in the trap again. You are seeing a man get actively caught in the Kyle Pitts trap once again, year after year. But hopefully this will be the year. Like, all the rest of the tight ends on the board have a one-game lineup. And if I'm chasing any semblance of a ceiling, I think it's going to come out of Kyle Pitts. Gesicki would be fine later just because single game sample size, he has some upside. The rest, though, I really ain't got jack shit for you, boss. Fire me with at the end if we really need it. Yeah. None of the rest of these teams really play into our setup right now. So I'm not going to stress. Yeah. I could reach for Henry. I don't really think I want to. And Kyle Williams is on the board. No need to overthink that. And that is likely our final wide receiver. I don't think Palmer's a necessity. We're already at 7. Pop Douglas is worse in a half PPR format. I feel fairly good about the receivers that I'm at right now. I do not fear the late round running backs. I am one with them. Even as they meticulously fall off the board. All right. Damn. What you need Hunter Henry for, boss? Son of a bitch. All right. Now we're at the point where I don't care particularly much about any of these tight ends. And they're all going to pretty much end up at the same output on the end of the season. Like, none of these guys are going to vastly outscore the other. That's just the reality of the situation. So there's no need for me to draft Zach Ertz with no game stacks whatsoever over fucking Juwan Johnson. Like, they're going to do the same thing most likely. Ertz probably won't have 7 TDs again this year. He'll probably drop down to like 5. Like, they're all like 100 plus, lower than 140 tight ends. This is where we are. So there's no need to take one now unless you have a particular reason to do so. I think the upside is right. Yeah. We're in running back draft mode, and then we'll probably end the draft with 2 other tight ends. So we're going 2 and 2, running back, tight end, 2 more running backs, 2 more tight ends, and then that'll close out our draft. I think there's a fair higher chance that Roschon Johnson has a bigger role without injury than Braylon Allen, even though I like Braylon Allen more as a player. I just think there's a higher likelihood that Johnson ends up being Montgomery than Allen becomes like a really solid B option in the running game. But admittedly, the Jets are going to run a lot more this year. But how much is the quarterback going to take away from that? Roschon Johnson. I'll tell you what, man. There's something about that Roschon Johnson out of the University of Texas, Austin, man. That guy will hit you like boom! A little bit John G for you. All right, one more RB, and then we close out with Freiermuth and hopefully Juwan Johnson. Admittedly, those 2 tight ends are not going to get us anywhere in the form of stacks, but they're the same amount of output for 20 picks later. Like, who in their right mind is drafting Mason Taylor at 185 when Schultz is 200, Juwan is 200? Hell, even this old asshole's at fucking 190. Even Okonkwo, like I would never be drafting Mason Taylor over Okonkwo unless I'm fully jet stacked. And if you're fully jet stacked, what are you doing? All right. Let's close this puppy out. Honestly, if you want to be a scared man, hunting upside. I really don't think much is going to happen with Judkins. If anything, I like very short suspension. So I'm not going to be the guy that overdrafts Sampson. But at this state, with limited info and kind of no idea what is going to happen to Judkins, I think you're completely fine being the guy that does take Sampson, especially at ADP. And Justice Hill is a fine follow-up pick given the matchups we can play into. Far from my favorite of these drafts, but I think it's a real representation of what you'll likely have to go through during your drafts. My most recent ones have went literally like to my plan, like to a T. This is a real instance of like, hey, you need to adjust on the fly as the draft develops and lean on assets like playoff schedule on the corner of your screen. It's what's going to help you when you really have no idea where to angle towards. All right, Samson. You want to link up, brother? Hey, Jacobs. Where'd... Is it Danny Woodhead? Hey, where'd Danny Woodhead go to school, Josh Jacobs? I don't know, Coach. Went to Chevron State, don't you know? Le'Veon Bell. And he'll ring your what? He'll ring your bell, man. Throwing too many Grudenisms out right now. But it's taking over my soul. I mean, I guess it's Pat. Now that we have Samson, we have 2 matchups. And we have Wright. So actually, yeah. Let's go Fryermuth. We actually have a 3-game lineup for him to potentially do something in some minis. Not really a abundantly amazing one. Why is Sam Darnold falling? I don't see it for Darnold. But I don't understand why he's falling, to be quite fair. But I mean, you feel good. We got into a sprint today. Oh my, killed myself. That sucks. All right. You got me. Son of a gun. To be honest, there's even like, you could take Darnold there. I don't really recommend it. You have nothing to play into his fantasy playoffs, but like, there is a slim chance that Darnold, very slim, that Darnold blows up during that 3-week stretch. But I sincerely doubt if he does blow up, like, you're going to be in a better position than the teams that have stacked up with him, right? Like, you're going to need Darnold to blow up and somehow, like, the rest of your receivers to be outperforming the wide receivers that Darnold is blowing up with. Yeah. Over a 3-game stretch, that's a lot harder than, like, a single-game thing. Tight end. Who's going to save me? I ain't got a clue, man. Higbee, maybe. I mean, Terrence Ferguson's another one. Like, I fully expect he'll take over, but is he going to take over this season? I think not. And Higbee's been good to me, apart from last year, especially in the later rounds. Conklin's a real, like, if we are dying on the island of relevancy. But we'll see how this shakes out. In the meantime, let's look through the draft, do some review. It's as important for me as it is for you. Start off the 4 spot with Jefferson. If you're getting a lot of 4s, taking a lot of Jefferson, I think taking Lamb at 4 is perfectly fine. After that, knowing that I potentially still want to angle towards some later round wide receivers, I went with Jacobs because it also just kind of gave me a little bit of something, some stability at running back. Could certainly have went Taylor, but I just think I'm going to go with the running back with equal volume and a better offense most of the time. I'm not too high on Bucky Irving, just straight up. I think that Rachaad White is still going to be plenty present. Took Chase Brown on the wraparound, mainly because I don't have a lot of him, and it actually opened up a pretty nice Baltimore 2-game stretch for any players I could get there. Ended up not going too hard on Baltimore, but we did get Zay Flowers, which is nice. Yeah, why not, Higbee? You do play Atlanta, right? Yeah, you do. All right. So there's that. Back to what we were saying. Chase Brown, don't have too much of him, and I was fairly certain like there were going to be some wide receivers later I wanted to target, so it just gives me some sort of stability at running back early in the draft. And admittedly, while I don't have much of Chase Brown, he is a running back with a fair amount of upside. Granted, you are drafting him like he needs to hit that upside. Not to say that he can't, still outperform ADP. It's just I think you're drafting him fairly near the upside that he presents, especially on a team with a pretty poor defense in a half PPR. JMO to work into that Minnesota game. Zay Flowers, because we knew we wanted to play off of these two games Baltimore is working into. Addison tailors us up for a Minnesota double later, which I felt fairly certain we had a shot at. Stephon Diggs, because I knew that New England could potentially play into something that we want, and it gave us, we had a decent shot, much more likely to hit May than we were McCarthy, or was it the other way around? No, much less likely to hit McCarthy, because he was the one. No, I'm incorrect. Ignore my delusions. We're much more likely to hit McCarthy at 124. May had to fall a couple of spots, but Diggs allowed us to kind of work into that. And New England does play Baltimore, so it's just another game to stack Baltimore into. Admittedly, though, we did not get enough Baltimore because we did not hit on likely later or walk into like Bateman or anything like that. So admittedly, didn't pan out perfect, but was something that could have worked out pretty well had the draft gone a little bit differently. New York, Cam Scatterboo, we just needed an RB3. Another player I don't have much of, so I want to get a little bit of my shares. And he does play Minnesota, who we've double stacked up into. Not necessarily play I want to push too hard in. Like, for that Minnesota double to hit well, they're going to have to be outscoring them by a lot. And I do think in a blowout, Tracy will likely be the running back getting more volume as opposed to Scatterboo. Hit our two quarterbacks here. Kyle Pitts, after, where's he at? After Likely went, it was kind of like, hey, there's no tight end here who's playing into our 3-game schedule with either of these two main teams abundantly well. So at that point, just take a tight end with the massive ceiling, which is Pitts. With that massive ceiling on Kyle Pitts comes a fairly low floor. So I did hope to potentially maybe get someone like Gesicki. I really wanted Hunter Henry. It was a damn shame that we didn't get him. So we did have to kind of work off that a little bit. Ended up taking Kyle Williams. This was the pick. You could have reached for Hunter Henry if you really wanted it, but went with Kyle Williams. He likely has the higher ceiling, which I'm content with. We needed some running back depth. I fairly like each of these young running backs. Wright, mixing up my Jalen's. Jalen Wright, I think presents a fair bit of upside. I don't think he offers the standalone role upside that someone like Ollie Gordon, who isn't even really drafted, presents, because Ollie Gordon could be the Mostert in this offense. But if there's ever a chain injury, I think Wright would be the 1A to a 1B with Ollie Gordon. Roschon Johnson, you're kind of hoping he becomes the Monty in this new Chicago offense, and he's also a converted running back in college, a running back that I don't think people appreciate, like, should have taken a little bit more time to get online. Like, he'd only played running back for a year or two in college and came out after not playing running back for like really any of his life. He went into college as a quarterback. So a player that I think still could be like in his developmental phase. Hopefully he takes that jump this year. With a new coaching staff, there always could be some slight shakeup, but I wouldn't expect that too much. I think Swift is in a fairly safe place, but he could be the B. And in that Detroit offense, now coming over to Chicago, being the RB2, can be fairly valuable. Dylan Sampson. I got him at ADP, and we have no idea what's going on with Judkins, even though I'm personally a person that's going to say, hey, take this Judkins dip, buy into it. If I don't have Judkins and I can get Sampson at ADP, I think I'm fine with that right now. And then I said it earlier when we were taking Pitts. All of these tight ends are the same thing as like these tight ends. They're going to have the same output on the end of the season. So I'd rather take Juwan Johnson and like Tyler Higbee, as ugly as it is, rather than take Otten and Gesicki when I have no matchups lined up with them. If you have a 3-game lineup in a sprint that like Cincinnati or Tampa Bay can target into, that's perfectly fine. Take them. You're working into the upside that your lineup presents. If you don't, there's no reason to reach on those tight ends. So that's the draft. Hope everyone enjoyed. Hope you have some great drafts the rest of your night. Stay safe. Have a great night. Peace.